Okay, so we are going to talk about what we are now calling the AD20 XXX. This here is a prototype. This is a hand ground blade. Started my process on machine grinding the blades. So we're calling this a XXX because this is what we call an XL double wide. This is our traditional AD20, standard thickness at 180. This is the same thickness, but it's longer and it has, the width built out this way. So extra width, extra thickness, or it will be. This one's standard, extra length. Pair the two, you can see much more substantial blade stock. And the whole internals of the knife need to be built up also. Thicker lock bar, thicker standoffs, internal parts. We're also adding a new bearing platform into this. You can see on these samples here, we have a larger bearing track for that. In comparison, you got the standard 20 to the XL and then the XXX thickness there. The stepped grinding I'm doing, since this blade is so thick, I gotta grind it 2 passes. We do an initial plunge, grind along there, and then we do a final grind. And then here, these are the drawings I get from Andrew to program the grinding. This line here represents the bevel height, so this line that comes across here. And then we need to match that with the edge. And these 2 lines here, I gotta input these coordinates into my machine, and these in there, and that gives us our bevel dimensions. These are like a guideline of what I want. When you're taking a soft wheel and you're pushing it to a hard piece of steel, you get some kind of different results. So take these, I put them in and make some adjustments to get the grind I want. And this is about 99% there. I just got to do a little bit of adjustments, and we'll see that more on the machine. This knife is already kind of extreme for your average knife purchaser. But people tend to come to us for big extreme knives, and I feel we represented that really good with this XL version. But there's room for a thicker knife, so we figured why not. And with the style I'm grinding this, it's still going to have a long taper because of how tall the blade is. And it'll still have great cutting performance, and you have a lot of extra mass behind that. So even though this knife on paper with that blade stock seems a bit extreme, it should still perform very well, having that thin edge, tall grind, and a lot of mass behind that. So it's an extreme knife, but not extreme for no reason. There's a lot of function behind it. I just pulled the last AD20 XXX off the burger grinder here. It was a new experience grinding a blade this thick, but what came out was exactly what I was looking for. And this is the grind. I took the grind nice and high so we could capitalize on the thickness of the blades. We have this 1/4 inch blade stock, but I still wanted to make a useful knife. So we wanted the thickness behind the edge to still be useful, not obscene. For example, if the grind was lower, you'd have it very thick behind the edge. But with the grind coming up this high, you still have this long taper that's going to make a very useful knife. It's definitely overbuilt, but at the same time, it's still a knife that you can use for everyday tasks. So when you look at the grind here, I took it up as far as I could without undercutting the thumb stud too much. Sometimes I will undercut the thumb stud a little bit, but in this one, I decided to take it right up to like that maximum limit. And then on this one here, this is one we sharpened, so it doesn't have the tumbled edges like that does. It was off the machine, I was testing the edge. And you can see it comes to a very, very delicate edge, and then it increases in thickness to that maximum 1/4 inch throughout there. Along with that, to build the XXX with the extra thickness, we had to increase the overall thickness of the internals. So this is the standard 180, what people call full thickness, 180. And this is the new extra thick 1/4 inch. So you can see the obvious difference in the blade stock there. The pins needed to be increased to accommodate that. Thicker locks and thicker standoffs around there to make up for that. So you can see there's a difference in the pivot pins, the rear standoffs, the stop pins. We also updated the bearings into this double row ceramic bearing. Now we're gonna get a couple of these sharpened and we're gonna do some cut tests. Trim tests on too, and we're gonna see what something that's truly built to the max can do. So we're going to do some cutting with the AD20 XXX, but first I just kind of want to talk about the edge geometry a little bit on this in comparison to our most standard AD20 at the 180 thickness. Because we have the wider blade, when you look at our standard grind, we're 840 thousandths, almost an inch, 84% of an inch. When you compare that here, we have a lot taller grind, slightly over an inch. What that does is that gets us a little thinner behind the edge. So when you look at our standard knife, roughly, we're 20 to 25 thou behind the edge on this one. Even though this is a thicker stock, we're getting, on this edge, we're getting probably 30 to 25. So it's a real similar thickness right behind the edge with a longer taper. So the cutting performance on this with the mass behind it, the broader blade, should be exaggerated from what we're getting here. All that is to say, there's a reason that this knife is built this way. It's for performance. It's not just for obscenity.
Right. It's not just because it's crazy and fun.
It is.
It is crazy and fun.
But there's purpose behind it. And we leveraged the grind on it to perform as a cutting tool as best as possible.
So even though it's quite thicker, nominally this is 3/16 and this is a quarter, you're not losing a lot of cutting performance, but you're gaining other things of the heft of the blade, the stiffness of the blade.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not crazy in that regard, because there's many knives, fixed blades, that do have 1/4 inch stock that are 4-inch, 5-inch blades, whatever.
Yeah.
So,
and the measuring I did on the blade too, that could go back and forth between each. They're almost exactly the same. You might favor slightly thicker on this one.
mm-hmm.
But they were both ground to be 15 thou before sharpening behind the edge. But you know, you would have to really look at cross-section measurements. You're going to have a more gradual taper behind here, so this is going to penetrate in more before it hits more thickness than even this one.
Probably so, yeah. And then sometimes you hit that thickness of the blade and it doesn't work with you, for example, cardboard slicing, but other things that it actually splits.
Yeah, splits, yep.
You know, it actually pushes the material apart and can help you.
Yeah.
So,
cut some stuff up.
Let's see if the number one test of a knife, and it's not easy for a folding knife, is the 1-inch rope. I should have warmed up.
That was easy.
That was super easy. I'm gonna try this like this because I got real arrogant. That was so easy. I don't know. This is maybe not a good idea. That was a good idea.
Too.
The heft that this gives you and the ability to hold right here and get more leverage really make cutting easy. It proves a lot. Not only the cutting edge, the sharpness, but the balance and ergonomics of the knife in your hand, that it can swing and do this. Like a lot of the knives are too light.
We're combining materials with good edge geometry, with good ergonomics, So that allows you to swing and capitalize on all the advantages.
It's very high performance. Most pocket knives aren't going to come out of someone's pocket and cut a 1-inch rope. It's just not going to happen. That's fixed blade territory.
And being cold, like that was your first cut today.
Yeah, that was my first two.
Yeah.
I'm going to stop right there. They were good. Let's do some cardboard. You know, cardboard, a lot of guys like breaking down cardboard. They love knives. They love expensive knives to break down cardboard. I will tell you that this is not going to be the world's greatest cardboard knife because it is thick, but I think it'll still cut very well. That's why we have slims that are an 1/8 inch thick, standards that are 3/16, XXXL that's the 1/4 inch. So, you know, this is still no problem. But what it maybe gets stuck at here, it sure helped on that freehang rope cut. It sure helps on penetration, or you're pushing your knife through things because the stiff blade does not flex at all, and you get easily penetration. Now this is effortless because again the edge is sharp. You know, this is leather, of course. There's nothing in nature, no, you know, animal hide or whatever. Well, not in North America, right? Very, 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 very easy. Let's try some of this. This is like standard sheath leather, and it's no problem whatsoever. Let's see that. See if we can get that tip through there. That's penetrating that very easily. You know what? Talking about this knife is performance of a fixed blade, and that felt even better than many of the 4-inch fixed blades that I've cut with because of the weight on the end. You know, the handle, sure there's some weight here, but the balance point, you know, it's people will say, oh, here's the balance point. No, the balance point has to be judged by where your front finger is. And when you're back here, when I'm holding here, you'll see that it's extremely blade heavy, which makes it hit hard. And not only does, well, I don't hit stuff. Well, sure, you cut stuff, you swing at branches, I swing at, you know, rosa, whatever that thorn stuff is.
Multiple rows.
Yeah, all that stuff. You're always chopping through that as you're hiking. It's always wanting to come forward and cut through things without, you know this, light knives, while they're great to carry, you know, they perform lightweight work because they're so light. This thing got a little bit of heft to it, and it really, really cuts.
I guess all that is to say, if you carry a knife like that, you're not going to be like, oh no, I brought the wrong knife for the job.
You know, and again, you would be, there's nothing that's unbreakable, but you would have to be, I can't imagine how you could break this blade. I can accidentally break my slim, especially if a real thin.
Oh, a high grind?
I have accidentally broke knives like this. You know what I usually did? I usually chopped stuff as I was walking through the woods. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, you can't, to accidentally break this would be crazy because this is like as bulletproof, as bomb-proof, with still high cutting performance as it gets.
Yeah, with that performance, you're not going to break down cardboard and be like, oh no, I should have brought a slim. It might not be quite as good at that, but it can still do it.
Yeah, and I would suggest buy a razor shark for cardboard.
Yeah.
This is, you know, trip around the world on foot.
Yeah.
Tough.
I agree.